to the March edition of Jozi and Cape Town Pack. I can't believe we're in March already. This year is really flying so far. So just some logistics quickly, just as usual, just make sure that you're staying on mute, please, just to try and minimize the amount of background noise. If you do want to collaborate, you do want to ask questions, please don't hesitate. Come off mute and ask. Use the raise hands feature or the meeting chat. We are recording the session, and these sessions are uploaded to our YouTube channel. Let me just get the right one up. There we go. So you can check the link for the YouTube channel in the top right-hand corner there. You can go in and see past events if you've managed, or if you missed out on anything. Okay. So tonight's session, we are going to just go through some of the news items. There's not much in the news at the moment. I did grab a couple of things I found quite interesting that I'm going to share. We then have Carike, who's going to be taking us through what she's doing with scanning invoices and using AI Builder and all of that. So that's going to be really great to see. The community discussion tonight is Canvas versus model-driven apps. So which to when you use which. And then David, you're doing the tech tip, and then we've got an open floor from there. Okay. Any questions before we get going? Any comments from anyone? Okay. Perfect. So let's jump into that in the news. So one thing, model-driven apps offline for makers specifically. In the past, this was an admin function, but we're now bringing out the capability that app makers can go and configure model-driven apps for offline usage as well. You'll see there's some additional screens that have been brought in to give this capability. We've got a new slider on the app creation page, so you'll be able to see that and start configuring it. You'll also be able to set up the profiles and check to make sure that everything's synced correctly. And then when you're having a look at the apps as well, you'll be able to go in, see the status, see what's outstanding, see if it's busy downloading or synchronizing everything on there. So this is really going to help for those scenarios where people don't have internet connectivity, but they are still want to gain access to some of that data. So you would be able to go in and configure what tables are syncing through, what items, and then how you handle those things moving forward. This is great to see that makers now have this capability as well. Okay, let me just switch this here quickly. Next one, there's been updates to the tenant level hygiene analytics for Power Apps. This has been a big ask where administrators need to be able to see what is happening in their environment. So we've added some additional features, and on the inventory, you can go in, have a look at when apps were last used, making it very easy to see if there's any stale apps inside your organization. And I suspect that in a lot of companies, there are tons of them. I worked with one organization today where they've got about 30 apps that they've got no owner for, that have just disappeared into the ether, but they're still sitting there. So this will help start giving you those additional insights. You've of course got also the features in the Power Platform COE, but this has been built directly into the admin center, making it a little bit easier to get those insights. Now, there have been a bunch of updates to Power Automate Desktop from the February update. There are new monitoring windows coming in. So instead of just using the built-in Windows notification, you can actually use a flow monitoring window, which gives some additional insights. You can minimize it, move it around, set it up, pause the flow, even stop the flow directly from there on the desktop itself. There's also some additions with using additional cards in the process as well. So when you are building out these process flows and you want to be able to embed some forms on there to capture information or update information, you are able to use adaptive cards, which is really cool to see. There are also 2 new actions where we can convert a file to base 64 and convert base 64 back to a file, which is also going to add some additional functionality. We've also got the ability now to extract tables from PDF directly from the Power Automate desktop, which is also great to see. This was a big ask that was coming in. So you can make it makes it a lot faster and easier to prepare and use that tabular data sitting in those documents and use that within the flow. I'm busy building something now for an invoice extraction flow, where in the past we were using AI Builder to get all the information. I'm now looking at including this in just directly in Power Automate desktop as well. What else was there? There is the ability to also copy subflows within a flow and then paste it in other flows as well. So it's very easy to move portions of the flow to other flows. You can even paste it in the same one or a different one. You're not limited there. And then there's also the automatic cleanup of any local actions log file. So we're going to continuously go and clean that up just to make sure that we are keeping the registry and everything clean on those machines that tool is running on. Now, the last one that I want to touch on is something really cool that I saw with the natural language query when you are building apps. You can see there by telling the device or telling the table or the gallery what you want to get out, it is able to generate that code for you, or that expression for you, making it really easy for everyone to start building out these apps. This is still coming through now, and this is using the natural language to power FX. Now, I just want to show a quick view of what that looks like in the background. So you can start to see all the various services that are being utilized to make this a reality. It's not as simple as just bringing it through. You can see we've got the query going to the content filter. We've got some other detection filters in there. We're leveraging Azure Open API proxies inside there, and then all the different post processes inside to be able to generate that query. I just thought that was really cool to see, and there's a great article on this, which I'll share the link, where it really dives deep into how we are enabling this technology. So check it out. It is great to see. Now, I just want to pause for a second and see if there's any questions from anyone. Okay.
I did have a question around what was that purpose of that display custom form, but I've just searched the web and I think I've answered it.
Are you talking about the adaptive card within the flow itself?
Yes, within the desktop, Power Automate desktop.
I think it's just making it easier just to capture information, update information as part of the flow.
Yes, because I was like thinking, well, but the user can't fill in anything because it's unattended, but it obviously is designed for attended RPA.
Yes. Yeah.
Where as part of the process, you want the user to capture some data.
Yeah.
And there's a few message box types, and then there's this new one, which is a custom form. So you can ask various questions.
Yeah. Which is really great.
And gather input, and then I guess carry on the rest of the flow based on what they've put in.
Yeah. And use that to update the variables or anything else that you're using the flow for, which is nice to see. Okay, perfect. So with that, thanks everyone. Carike, I'm going to hand over to you. Do you want to share your screen?
Fantastic. Thanks, Jonathan. I'm going to share my screen quickly. I think that is the one that I want to share. Fantastic. Okay, so hello everyone. Awesome. Thank you for what's in the news, Jonathan. I'm very excited about the new stuff coming for Power Automate Desktop, because that's actually one section that I need to upskill myself on. So that's very exciting. And so just to give some background, I didn't prepare any slides today because I didn't feel it was necessary. But just to give some background on how I got to this scenario is I was actually having a chat with my aunt who works in finance. And she mentioned that she scans in more than 1,000 documents, and then they have to manually go and rename all of those invoices to be the invoice number. And obviously, because when you scan in a document, it generates a random number. And I was telling her, like, what? Is there someone that's sitting there dedicated to do that? She says, and she was like, yes. So I was like, no, that's crazy, man. And I was at that point thinking like, well, I can definitely see AI Builder being of assistance there and just like completely eliminating that task where they have to go and manually rename those invoices from the scanned document. So I started playing around with it and I found that it was actually super simple to do. And building the demo for today, a lot has changed actually, and it's just become even more simpler to use. And so I just wanted to show you guys, I have a pre-built solution because we know things can go wrong. But I'll take you through the steps just to on how I created something. It's the demo is going to be super simple, but I can really see how this will add value for companies, because I mean a lot of companies work with invoices on a daily basis. So first of all, we'll go to Power Automate, and then what we'll do is, for those who haven't used AI Builder, I know like not a lot of people have played around with AI Builder, and personally when it comes to licensing, I'll put the disclaimer out there right now. I'm not talking about licensing at all because, as mentioned before, it's complicated. So then you've got AI Builder here on the left-hand side, which is pretty cool. Shall I use my presenter tool to show? There's AI Builder. There we go. There we go.
That is really so cool.
And yeah, so we've got AI Builder here on the left. You will see something similar when you are also navigating Power Apps. When you navigate to the Power Apps site on your browser, AI Builder is sitting in there as well. And what I find useful, in the beginning I was a bit confused about it, but I understand why it's built like this. So if you want to use AI Builder within your app, then it's more advisable to do it from the Power Platform, like the Power App screen, instead of here. And when you want to use something like build a workflow around your AI Builder model, then it would make more sense to use Power Automate. So if you just expand this, you'll see you got Explore, Models, and Document Automation as options under here. I think what I'll do for now is I'll just click on Explore. I was absolutely amazed because I haven't played with this for a while. And I was amazed at how many models have come in since AI Builder just started. And there's so many pre-built models that you can use. It's really just insane. So one that stood out for me was this extract information from invoices. I was pleasantly surprised that you can just click, it's a pre-built model. And then when you click on it, I'm not going to use this one, but it was just interesting. So it shows you the type of information that it can extract from invoices. And you actually have a few examples. And then you can just click use in a flow. And then what this will create is a button click flow where you can either from your phone, well, probably from the phone because it's the buttons normally on mobile. You can go and you can scan a JPEG or a PNG or a PDF, and it will extract the information for you. And I think the connectors that it connects to is Dataverse, Outlook, and there was one more, Office. But yeah, so I was pretty impressed. I mean, it creates the whole flow for you. I was playing with it a little bit earlier, but I haven't gotten it to work. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because that's not the one that I want to focus on. But I was really, really impressed with these pre-built models. It just shows you how quickly you can get something out there and be up and running, and you've just made someone's life so much easier. So yeah, super impressed with that. But the one that I want to use today is the one that says extract custom information from documents, and it's from the form processing section in AI Builder. So I'm going to click on that one. The reason I'm going through these steps is just to show you how easy it is to build your own custom model according to what your company's needs are and the information that you need extracted from it. And then how to use it by building a flow using your model as well. So very similar, you see some examples. So we'll click on Get Started. And then, as you know, with AI Builder, or maybe you don't know, but with AI Builder, all you need to build your model or to train your model is 5 examples. And obviously, it's advised that the examples that you use look similar, so that it actually starts following a pattern. But you can like when you try with build a model, you can also add different sets, if I can call it that. So I downloaded some example data from, I think it is from one of the Microsoft sites. I'll share the links afterwards. So I'll just add it. I have built a model already with just some random invoices that I've created, but I'll use for this example, I'll use the example data that I got. So the first thing that we need to do now, we're getting started. We want to start building this model out because we want, when we get invoices scanned in, we want certain fields to be recognized, whether it's PDF or JPEG. So, but the first thing that we need to do is we need to add what kind of data that we need to recognize from either the PDF or the JPEG. So the one thing that I want to recognize is going to be a field because it's going to be invoice number. So I want to get the invoice number from the scanned invoices. Okay, and then something else that is very cool, which I absolutely enjoyed using, is this single page table. So we know like almost never is an invoice just one line of information. I mean, if you're thinking about buying multiple things, it's going to be in a tabular form. And this has been so cool to just be able to extract that information in a table, because previously, before this table feature was available, you had to like identify each field. And with this table, I'll show you how easy it is to just extract all that information, and it populates the fields for you, which is pretty cool. So we're going to use a single page table, and we'll call this invoice details. Okay, and then I'm just going to add some columns that I want, which I know is sitting in the invoices example. So what I'll do is I'm going to rename this column, and this will be quantity. And then we'll add another one. There you go. Then we'll add another one. I think this one was unit total. We have this totally wrong, but that's fine. And I think it was line total. Cool. And then you go add. So that's pretty much what our table looks like on our invoice. So what's nice about this is how customizable they are. I mean, sometimes you would have more columns or less columns, but you build it around how your invoice what your invoice looks like. So now I'm going to say done. So we're happy with that. And then I'm going to click on next, because now we want to actually add the documents that we want to train our model on. So I'm just going to click on new collection, and then with this new collection you can rename it. I'm just going to call this test data for invoices. Okay, and then we want to start adding documents. So I'm going to go click on add documents, and here you can select a source. You can choose whether you want to upload the documents from a local storage, from SharePoint, or Azure Blob Storage, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's quite a lot of sources that you can copy it from. So I'm just going to go to the AI Builder sample data. I'm going to use a datum, and these are the ones that we want to train. So I've got my 5 there that I want to use. I'm going to click on open. So it just uploads the ones you want to use to train your model. So we're going to click on upload these 5 documents. This part normally doesn't take too long. The only part where I found where a person waits a little bit is obviously when the model is being trained, but we'll get to that soon. Okay, so now we've got our 5 documents. Then we're going to click on next. What I also like is on the left-hand side, you've got like a little hierarchy of the steps that's still left for you to complete your model. So I like how it guides you through this process as well, because as we know, the whole idea of the Power Platform is to also make this easy for people who aren't necessarily technical. You know, so it guides them up. I would say, like, it really is a nice guideline for what to do next, and really helps people to understand what they need to do.
Carike, what's also really nice that we've added in was the ability to add separate collections. So you can add different formats of documents. So each collection is dedicated to a specific format. It just makes it easier than having 15 or 20 different models and all the logic in front of that to make sure you send in the right form to the right model. Now you've got one that makes it easier to do.
So true. I agree with that. I mean, that really is such a bonus, because now you're sitting essentially with one model, but it can extract information from a whole set like of different types of looking invoices. And it would be interesting to see, Jonathan, obviously I'm doing this using AI Builder, but it would be so interesting to see how you would do that using Power Automate Desktop. And I'm sure, not that I want to talk about licensing, but I'm sure it would affect, because obviously if there's no need for AI Builder, that is a big plus, you know, to get information out of the invoices.
I'm also interested to see that. I'm still busy investigating to see, because essentially it might be able to do it offline, so you might not need anything. So we'll have a look and see. Maybe I'll share.
Yeah, that would be cool. Okay, awesome. So once you have your documents like that, you can see your 5 documents are lined up. And what we're going to do now is we need to identify the specify the fields on this. So we have to click on the field and assign it to a tag. I'm going to call it a tag because they call it tags as well. And we're going to have to do it for all 5 of these. But you'll notice as we get to the last one, that it will actually start auto-populating the things for you, because it's, as you tag it, it actually is clever enough to start recognizing the pattern as you go as well. And I find that very nice as well. So what I'll do, you'll see that it highlights things for you, and you can also click and drag if you wanted to. So with invoice number, I'm just going to hover over that and select it. And then once I've done that, you can click which field or tag does this associate with. So this one associates with invoice number, and you'll see that it's been ticked. So now we know where the invoice number sits on this document. Now we're going to scroll down, because we've got a little like table here, and this is the table that we want to extract data from without. So I'm just going to highlight this whole block. And then what I'll do is I'm going to say this table associates with invoice details. Now, this is the cool part. I had so much fun doing this. So the first thing that you need to do, and once again, it guides you on the right-hand side to tell you what is required for you to do. Even if you like, it was my first time doing this with the tables, and I had so much fun doing this. So first of all, you need to add rows. And then how do you do it? You left click inside of the table to add your rows. So it's as simple as, you see it makes a little line. So I just go left click, left click, left click, and then it identified my rows. Now what I need to do is I need to add columns. So I need to press Control and left click to add columns, and that's to determine these columns. So what I'll do is I'm going to click Control, and you'll notice that the line changes immediately. And now I can go left click, and then left click, and I've got 4 columns. Now what I need to do is I need to associate the columns that I've identified here with the columns that I mentioned is going to be in my table. So if I click on A, I want to say that's the quantity column. And like you will see on the right hand side, it's already populated my table with the information that it's getting from this document, which is pretty neat. Then we're going to click on B for description, going to associate it with description, and it populates it. C, this one is the unit total, and then D is going to be the line total. Then something else that you can do is you notice that I've highlighted the top row as well, which is the headings of this table. But what you can do is you can actually select for it to ignore the first row on the right hand side, and then it only captures the values that you have within your document. It is so cool. I was so impressed with this. And then I'm going to click on Done. And that's us done with the first document. So then you move on to the next one. And you just do a similar exercise to just tag your fields and the ones that you are looking for. And it's super simple. I must say, I found this so easy to use. So I'm just going through this exercise quickly. And did you see how it already associated, like it put the, before it was just A, B, C, D. Now it's already like smart enough to pick up that this is on the previous document, what you assigned to this thing, is it still that? And you can click, and if it changed, it's fine. But it already picked up on that because it picked up on the pattern. And then we're happy. And then you're just going to click on ignore the first row. And then we're done with the second document already. And that's just how easy it is to start tagging your documents, and this will help to just train your model. And it's super cool how this is done. I must say, I'm super impressed. So do you guys have any questions so far while I'm just busy tagging this quickly? Okay, if there's no questions, it's cool. I'll just blabber along. But yeah, I must say, I'm super impressed with the form processing. What I also would like to, I was thinking, this is totally not related to the demo, but I was binge watching a series this weekend on YouTube, which is actually Korean. And it actually made me think about that I want to start building an AI builder that can recognize text from an image, because obviously I don't understand Korean, but I would like to see what the images are showing. So that will probably be my next fun thing to work with. Done. And then the last document. I mean, how super easy is this?
Really is. Even for the first time when you use it, it's pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. So it's quick and easy to pick up and start using. That's
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to make sure that I told them all to use the, ignore the first row. Edit the table. I felt like I missed one because I'm talking too much, you see. So I just want to be sure that I've got them all proper. Okay, cool. I think it was just the one that I missed. Okay, perfect. So I've tagged all my documents. All 5 out of 5 has been tagged. You can see that with the check mark here. So what we'll do is we'll click on next. And then we're going to click on train, because now we want this model to be trained. So something important to note is that as soon as you've trained your model, that's all good and well, but you won't be able to use it in a Power Automate or a Power App until the point where you've actually published your model. So it's super important to publish your model. So what I'll do next is, while this one is waiting to train, I'll show you the one that I have trained already. So it's very similar. So what you do is, once it's busy training and you're on this screen, which is models, you can also still navigate to models on the left-hand side. If you just go under AI Builder, you can go to models and it will show the models that you have. And then you can actually click on the model. And once you've clicked on it, this is where you will be able to publish your model. You can also do a quick test for your model. You can upload a test document and see if it actually extracts the information the way you want it. And then you can edit your model even. So as Jonathan mentioned earlier, let's say the invoice format changes or there's new types of invoices coming in. You edit your model, you add a collection, and you start training that. And then every time you do that, you just train it again and publish it. So, but what's nice is once you have this and you've published your model, these two features become available on the right, which is a Power Automated Power App. So I just want to show you with the one that's been training. And this one is trained now. So you'll see if you wanted to use the automated Power Apps on a model that isn't published yet, it actually lets you know that, hey, this model isn't published, so it's not going to recognize it. So what we want to do is we want to publish it. And then once it's published, it's going to ask you, do you want to use it within Power Automate or create a Power Automate with your new model? So we can click on Use Model. And then once you click on Use Model, it gives you these options. You can use it with a new flow within Power Automate or a new app in Power Apps, or you can use the document automation solution. So I'm not too familiar with this one, but I am familiar with the two above. So for this example, I'm not going to click on New Flow and Power Automate. I'll actually go to the Power Automate that I've created already for the previous model, which is this one. So I'm just going to go to My Flows. I'm going to say use form processing. I'm going to edit this flow, and I'm going to show you what comes with it out of the box and what I've added to it as well. So I'm assigning to all of that. That's fine. Perfect. So as soon as you say, I want to create a new flow using this model, you get this step here that says when a file is created, and you specify the OneDrive location where you want, because as soon as you select, maybe I must just go back a step, but as soon as you select, I want to create a new flow, it actually gives you options as to should it be when a new file is uploaded to OneDrive, or it gives you options on what is the trigger going to be for you to use this or build a flow using this model. So I created when a new file is uploaded to OneDrive, and that this is step is here just to say that, hey, congratulations, you've created your flow, which is very cute. I enjoyed that. Then it actually adds the AI Builder step, which extracts the information. It picks up the model that you've just built. It gets the file content type for when it is uploaded into OneDrive, and it uses the file content as well. So what I've added to this is, because for this demo, what I wanted to do was, number one, I wanted to rename the scan invoices as they come in. And what I've added additionally is I actually wanted to extract the data and save it to a SharePoint list. I made the file that it needs to look for, the file ID. I used the dynamic value of file identifier. The destination file path is the invoice scan file, and I want this to be the new name of that file and overwrite the existing one. Okay. And then after the, well, before it does that, I want the extracted information to be stored into SharePoint. So what was cool about this, when I added this step, obviously initially I started with just the SharePoint step, right? And then, but what was very cool for me is as I started populating the information for the SharePoint step, because I chose the site where I wanted it to be stored, I chose the list where I wanted the information to be stored in. And then I chose the title, and obviously invoice number is just one field with one value. And I also wanted to get the scanned name before it is renamed. But what was cool was as soon as I chose quantity, because quantity is part of that table that we used within our model, as soon as I chose to use the value field for quantity, it automatically put this step in an apply to each. So it was clever enough to pick up that this is a table and it's going to have more than one value. So I need an apply to each for this step that I've just created. And for me, that was really, really cool. So I didn't even have to think about that. So what it will do is for each item within the table that we're extracting from the invoice, it's going to add an entry into SharePoint with extracting from the invoice. So yeah, and then the get my profile and send an email step was also out of the box as soon as I say to use my model. So you got like a fully working functional workflow as soon as you've trained your model, you've published it, and you say, hey, I want to actually use this model and build a workflow, which I think is super easy. There's not much thought that you need to do as a consumer besides just thinking about the steps that you want to follow after your invoice is uploaded into OneDrive. So what we'll do is, I think I have activated this workflow. Just want to make sure active. wasn't. But anyways, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to just, my scan a little bit different to a normal scanner because I have to manually create my things. But what I'll do is this is I've got a little Word document thingy that I'm using just to show you that I'm actually using something custom and not just uploading something random and made some magic for it to work. This is actually just working the way it should. So I'm just changing some values on this template. Take note of this invoice number, which is 1008, because that's the main one that we're going to be fields in the table as they are, because that's not too important right now. So I'm just going to export this to PDF. Just want to be sure. There we go. Here we go. We're going to go to scan documents and the ones that we're testing. We're just going to give it a random name because this is pretty much what a scanned invoice name looks like, and we'll put today's date, which is the 8th. And then we'll go publish. So that's going to be our scan for today. So happiness about that. I'm just going to close this, minimize that. And then what we want to do is we want to upload that one that we just got. Just going to navigate to that and test. And I'm just going to drag it over and paste it into Invoices scanned. And this should upload my document, which looks like that, and we're happy. And then we're just going to check the run history for this flow right here to make sure that it actually did run through all the steps and actually started, because that's the biggest thing. And if all else fails, we'll just do a test. Have you guys also noticed that sometimes it feels like it takes forever for a workflow just to start? Or was it just me?
No, I have been noticing lately, especially when I'm demoing and when time's of essence, it sometimes takes a while to run.
Yeah, I found that to be very, very interesting.
You've just got to be able to speak through it.
Exactly. You're like, come on, man. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a test. And I'll do
That's correct. So some of the connectors that initiates, you can set how often it should check if there's a new event.
Oh, cool. I'll definitely have a look at that. So I'm just going to select test and see if it does anything for us, because I have uploaded something in there. And if all else fails, I'll just use some of the other ones that I have. Oh, there we go. Yes, it worked. Amazing. Okay. So as you would have noticed, is this one got renamed while I was busy uploading a backup. And then if we just check the test history or the run history, you'll see that it went through all the steps successfully, which is always a good feeling. And then lastly, I'm just going to refresh this list because this is the list where I've extracted the information to. So you'll notice these are all the new records, and it's actually made a row for every single one of the items that is within that invoice. And it might not mean anything to some people, but I think for a lot of people, it just inspires them or gives them an idea of what they can actually use AI Builder for. And, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be invoices. It could be other documents where you need to like extract information to get rid of a task where you have to sit and manually do things. So, but yeah, that is my scanning invoices into the wild.
That is really awesome. Let's bring in some applause. Carike, how long did it take you to learn all the components and put everything together the first time?
The first time, it was less than half of a day.
Yeah. That's the great thing about it. It's really quick and easy to pick up.
It is really, really quick and easy. I was super surprised at how uncomplicated this is, you know, and with all the guidance that it gives you. And obviously, because I've had most of it open, the little guides with where it's a bubble and it says, then you have to click here and then you have to click here, doesn't come up. But I mean, there's so much guidance that, you know, it's super, super easy to navigate and actually create something that relieves you of a big task, and I can really see the return of investment for companies being so large, you know, that it actually makes it worth it to pay that license for AI Builder. Because I know AI Builder is expensive, but I mean, it's totally worth it if you look at how much effort gets saved.
If you just look at the man hours alone with processing all those invoices, if you had to do it manually, it's going to take a long time.
Exactly.
So that's really the benefit of it. Perfect. Any questions for Carike?
That's amazing, Carike. Well done.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Is there any questions? I haven't been checking the chat. Is there any questions that came out in the chat?
No, just some more questions around licensing and document sets, but I think we've managed to cover them all.
Okay, cool. Super.
Sure. Carike, really thanks for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the time, guys. This was fun.
Oh, no, great. And for everyone else, if there's anything cool that you feel you want to share with the audience, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's always great if we get people to present so you can see what is really happening out there with the tool sets. Great stuff. Michael or Monet, I don't know if Monet's on the call. I think the next topic we're going to be touching on is Canvas versus model-driven apps. Or David, I don't know if you want to take this.
Yeah, I don't mind. Michael, I'm sure you've prepared, so I'm not sure if you want to take this one.
Well, this was a discussion for the floor, really.
Somebody needs to introduce.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I'm happy to introduce if you would like me to. I'll do that. When should I use a Canvas app, or when should I create a Canvas app in Power Apps versus when should I create a model-driven app? And I guess it's a question we get now and again. I think people are mostly familiar with Canvas apps. You know, those I guess are what most apps that people have seen, you know, in training or online or have built themselves, especially if you've got M365 licenses, you can only create Canvas apps. You can't create model-driven apps. So I think everyone's afraid with what those are. You know, you kind of get this blank screen. You can add screens and you insert controls and you make the UI look how you want it to look. And then you've got the model-driven app, which is you have less flexibility around the user interface. It's model-driven apps only work with the Dataverse. So a model-driven app, you create your table first in the Dataverse, or many tables in the Dataverse. And then your app, sorry, hold on for me 2 seconds. And then in your model-driven app, you refer to your table, and essentially, in quotes, it builds the screens for you. And I'll pop 2 images in the IAM window shortly, just to give you a sense if you haven't seen the difference between a model-driven user interface and a Canvas app. And I guess the question is, and we'd love to hear people's feedback on the call, when should I do a Canvas app and when should I do a model-driven app? Or are we asking the wrong question? Aha.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
No. So please bear in mind that I've probably been out of the game for a little bit now because I've moved into a different direction, but I'm still keen on Power Apps. So for me, historically, the main difference between the two is exactly that. So it comes down to what your end use for the app is going to be. So if you have an environment that has very strict rules in terms of the data and the business process flows that need to be followed, then a model-driven app will be better for you because you already have existing data that you just need to add into the system. And then once you have the data, it's very easy to set up your business process flows in a model-driven app. Whereas in a Canvas app, those business process flows just take a little bit more effort to get done. However, if you're not very strict in terms of your data and your process flow, and you more just want an application to be able to call in data or serve as a communication or as a team collaboration app, then your Canvas app would be better in terms of my understanding of it. That's me.
Oh, perfect. And I think that's a great point to mention, especially with the business process flows, because you can embed that right there and remind everyone of it. It makes it a lot easier to do. The way we usually look at it from my side, and when I'm busy helping and working with customers, is your Canvas-based app is really for end user consumption. So if you're just capturing information quickly, if you're spending a few minutes just either accessing something or viewing something, Canvas apps work great. But when you're looking at a full business process, model-driven apps work pretty well. Thanks for the screenshots, Michael. I don't know if you are talking, we can't hear you.
No, I just wanted to say that here's two examples. It's about onboarding a vehicle into the organization, kind of fleet management. The first is a Canvas app, and there's absolutely a business process there. I can see it.
Yeah,
there's different stages and there's tasks. And then the model-driven app is exactly the same data. In fact, they're both referencing the Dataverse. The second one is a model-driven app. There's the same business process, the same data. So, yeah. So I'm intrigued. When should I use one and when should I use the other?
Yeah, I think Vanessa raised a few very good points, and I think one of the things that stand out for me is when you start talking about security and roles and privileges to the data. Then to do that in a Canvas app is possible, but it requires you to create all of that information from all of that functionality in the app. Where in a model-driven app or in Dataverse specifically, you get a lot of that out of the box, which is very powerful. And then obviously you can also create a Canvas app to read the information from a Dataverse store, which means that all of that security and all of these sort of things still stays intact, which is phenomenal. But I think in general, the moment that you need to do different roles and different privileges to the data and these sort of things, a model-driven app and Dataverse just comes to the fore.
Yes, Carike, go ahead.
Yes, Carike.
Yes, so I actually just have one question that popped into my mind now, because obviously, like Michael mentions, the examples of both apps has the same information. So what is essentially the difference? But my question would be, of those two apps, which one would be the easiest to add to a Power App portal? Because Power App portals, as easy as they are, can become very complex as well. So which one of those two would be the easiest to add to a portal?
I really don't like this question at all. You've totally confused me, and you've made the topic super yeah. So actually, there's a third type, isn't there? There's a Canvas app, there's the model-driven app, and then there's the portal. So actually, in this example, I can even go and open up the portal because I have a portal for this as well, and I'll give you the screenshots of the portal. But that's just another option, I guess. So if we want to expand it, so now when do we do a portal, when do we do a model, and when do we do a Canvas is an interesting point. Yes.
Yeah, Tian, go ahead. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, so I'm going to ignore the portal part, but just on the canvas versus model. So in my opinion, if you can, firstly depends on the audience and what the requirements are, but if you can set up what you need to build by just defining rules and logic, then model-driven app is the easiest way to go. If there is more to it, it's not just rules. You need to see something in a certain way. If there's certain parameters or whatever, then you're going to start looking at a Canvas app. So that's just how I would split it up. And because I guess I'm a more rather develop something than set rules for it, I tend to go towards Canvas apps if I have a choice.
Good point. You sharing something, Mike? Oh, yeah, I see the model-driven app. You are on mute if you are trying to speak.
No, Justin, I see
Okay.
he's got hand up.
Yeah, so I mean, it's about the user of the app and what you're wanting to use it for, right? So there's no reason why, just like you have all three set up for your same data set, they all talk to the same data platform, and you now have different experiences for different user types. So while your first image is great for someone who's maybe walking around with a Power App open on his iPad and he's walking across the lot or whatever and he's managing his process, that's a great data entry point and an easy way for him to do what he needs to do. And then your model-driven app is great for an administrator who's sitting in a central location to sort of review all of the processes and understand across the fleet exactly what is happening across all of the onboarding. So again, I think it's about identifying the right use case for the right user across the entire stack. And that applies with using your portal stuff as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. In actual fact, this example here was that actually. So the Canvas app was designed for an employee to use as they walk around the facility and, or on a PC and, yeah, the kind of like the end user who's actually checking list items and actioning tasks, etc. The model-driven app was for back office, and the portal was for customers. And actually, customers are other businesses, but also suppliers. So suppliers of the vehicles would have access to the portal. So yeah, so that's a good use case, or a good way to look at it, depending on who the user is. And just as a matter of interest in this specific example, the Canvas app took me about 3 days to build. It's quite fully functional though. The model-driven app took me 2 hours. So there's a big difference, yeah. Because the model-driven app, like if you look at the screen that I'm sharing now, especially when you want to have a list of items, so maybe it's a list of jobs, maybe it's a list of invoices, maybe it's a list of cars, tasks, or whatever it is, a list like this. You don't have to build this, it's just there. Search just works, filtering just works, views works, complex views, slicing and dicing, and then clicking on one of these records and then seeing the screen with multiple tabs. I didn't have to build any of that. That's kind of just there. It's just built in. So when you select a vehicle and then you get this here, like I didn't have to build any of this. I just had to say, okay, I want these fields on here and just drag and drop them. But it's certainly not necessarily the UI that's, first. What's first is the task at hand to go and fill in stuff here, and all model-driven apps will look the same. So if I show you another type of app, which is an e-recruitment app or a farm management app or whatever it is, they'll all pretty much look like the screen here. But boy, I can build them quick. But they do require the Dataverse. Like this is all on the Dataverse, whereas a Canvas app can use the Dataverse or any other data source you really want.
So there's nothing stopping you from using a special page and just dumping your pretty Canvas app over there and replacing this form, right?
Justin. Yes. So like both. Exactly.
There
So
we go.
yes, because now we can have Canvas pages inside a model-driven app. So what I could have done is when I click one of these vehicles links in here, it actually opens that screen inside the model-driven app. So now we can actually combine them as well, which is quite interesting. Yeah. Technically, you can do that.
Yeah, and I think the reality is most of the larger type solutions that you look at will probably be a combination of all of these technologies. And with the ability that you can now embed it into your model-driven app, I think there's just so many possibilities that open up. And I think in addition to that, the PowerFX commands as well in model-driven apps is just opens up a brand new space. The PowerFX commands, though, there's still a few funnies happening with that. It's still in preview, but I think once that's fully polished, it's going to be a phenomenal component to the overall solution.
Yeah, well, there's so many things, and I'm always conscious of time and if people are interested in listening, but like a model-driven app, you don't have to worry about responsiveness. It just works on a mobile phone, right? It will take the blocks that appear on a model-driven page or model-driven form. Where's a model-driven form? So this one here. And when I look at this on a mobile app, it'll just work. Whereas with a Canvas app, you can make it responsive, but you still have to do stuff, right? You have to put the responsive container on, and you have to think about it. Whereas with model-driven, you don't think about responsiveness at all. It will just work fine on a mobile device. And I guess that makes sense also because a Canvas app, it doesn't know what you're going to do, like what graphics you're going to put where, how. Whereas a model-driven app, it's always in a grid. There's like a specific set of grid, that runs on a page, like 2-column, 3-column, and that's where it is. And then you just put fields in those places. So that would kind of make sense as well.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that a Canvas app is so customizable from a look and feel perspective is a good thing as well as a bad thing, because if you really want to make it look nice, that can take some time. Where if it's not important for the use case, I would say model-driven apps, for 80% of the time, the look and feel is perfect. You don't need to tweak it too much. And you don't need to worry about all the CRUD operations that you need to create in a Canvas app. In a model-driven app, everything just lights up around the data, which is phenomenal, which is a lot faster. It really is very fast.
Any other views from anyone else of when you might want to choose one over the other, or both, or none, and rather do a portal?
How long did it take you to build the portal for this?
So I didn't actually recreate the whole thing in the portal. The only thing I recreated was the ability to add a vehicle. And that also took about 15 minutes. But I just used a stock standard UI. Let's just see if I might even have a screenshot of it here. So it allows me to add a vehicle. And yeah, it was about 15 minutes, but I haven't done any branding. And I guess the other thing just about a portal I think is important is, most people are probably not going to build your big brochureware, Ferrari.com on this portal technology, right? It's not a web content management system. This portal technology is designed to hook into the Dataverse. So if you want to expose data in the Dataverse to a portal, a citizen needs to sign in and see where their application is in a process, or log it, add some information onto a website, here, add some vehicle information, or apply for a job, or look at the different jobs or tenders, this type of stuff that sits in the Dataverse like it's very easy to put into a portal. Like you literally say, okay, I want a page, link to that table in the Dataverse. Okay, which features do you want? I want a feature to add, delete. You know, it's like checkboxy and ticky to make it work. Yeah, but also saying that if you've never used portals before, like it took me 15 minutes because I have had experience building portals, Power App portals. So if you've never done a Power App portal before, initially getting going does take a bit of time actually. But once you get it, then you fast. And I think it's the same with model-driven apps. You know, once you've got the hang of it, you do stuff super fast.
Yeah, I remember I built a portal back when it first came out, and it took a while just to wrap my head around it, and I didn't do one for a long time, and I tried the other day, I had to start over from scratch, essentially. So there's a bit of a learning curve inside there. It's not as easy to pick up as some of the other things I've found. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Mike. I think that was great. Any other comments from anyone?
Just one from me. Also, I know we've mentioned it before, but the licensing between the three of those are also key and something that you would need to bear in mind.
Absolutely.
I know that they've changed how they license portals as well. So, you know, I think that when you have a look at those things, you also need to look at the appetite of your customer and what they want the ongoing build to be or the once-off build to be with regards to their licensing.
Yeah, you can't look at building model-driven apps if you don't have the licenses and you're not interested in it. So it does make the conversation different. Good point.
I think what's just another thing to just keep in mind with that is that in a Canvas app, you end up building a lot of the logic of the application, the business rules, the security and those sort of things in the front end. And sometimes that's not ideal. And I think it's a big thing in a lot of Canvas apps that we sort of inherit. We see that it's not, you know, it really should have been a Canvas app. And then you try and bend Canvas apps to do something that it's not really built to do, and then the app becomes a monolith. So I think the moment that there's a lot of business rules, a lot of security, it's really many of the times it's worthwhile starting to talk about premium licensing on Power Apps so that you can start using the Dataverse. And I think that's definitely where Microsoft wants you to look as well. You know, so I think the chances of them bringing advanced business rules and business processes and these sort of things into Canvas apps is zero. So it's really at some stage, I think most companies will be using model-driven apps. I think that's a reality of it. It's like Vanessa says, it's just around the appetite for the client on when they're ready to make that jump.
Definitely. Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Hope everyone enjoyed that and got a bit more insights, and I'm not more confused than they were beforehand. Yeah, great comment, great topic. Okay, next item on the agenda is the tech tip. So, David, back over to you. You got something cool to show us this evening?
Thanks, Jonathan. So I was actually going to do another tech tip on getting into some of the backend functions of Dataverse, but I think seeing that Carike did such an awesome job on the invoice scanning, I thought that I'm actually going to show something that actually has very little or well, actually nothing to do with Power Platform, but I think it's something that I've realized not a lot of people know, and it's something that is hugely powerful and that most people have access to. So what I'm going to show you is if you have a PDF document, right? And this could be a PDF document that was printed to PDF that is fairly well structured, or it could be something that was scanned. A lot of the times you really just want to get this thing into an editable format. And then, you know, typically you go into Adobe Acrobat Reader and you say, make this thing editable, and it asks you to pay money to actually go and buy some subscription software from Adobe. But what I want to show you is how you can do it with, there's a 90% or 100% chance actually that you've got the software on your machine to do this already. So I want to just quickly show you how to do that think that could be pretty useful. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share the whole screen. Okay, so what I've got open in front of me is two PDFs. The first one is a PDF that was printed to PDF. So you'll see that it's pretty well laid out, and a good test always, if you go and do a search, text search, you'll see that it's actually picking up text on the document. So this is a well-structured PDF document, but still, if you're in Adobe to try and edit this, you know, they want you to pay money for it. So what you could do, and what's super useful, is if you just right-click on this document and tell it to open with, and you choose another app because it's not in the apps that Windows would typically suggest, and you just go and pick Microsoft Word, and you click on OK. Word is now going to attempt to convert this into an editable format, and the truth of the matter is it does a sterling job of this. So it tells you it might take a while, and if it finds anything that it can't convert, it'll just turn it into an image. So we say that's fine, give it your best stab, and here you go. It's actually done a brilliant job at this. You'll see it not only converted the text into an editable format, but it also created the tables for you, which is hugely helpful. All right, so you can just go and change this thing and make changes as you like, and you can then go and save this into a normal Word document, which is very cool. Okay, so that's the one part of it. Any questions?
No, I think people forget that they can do that sometimes.
I've tried that in the past and it didn't work out pretty. So I'm quite amazed that it looks so good.
Use the good documents.
The document that I'm going to show you now is an actual scanned in document. Okay, so this you'll agree with me that this is a terribly formatted PDF document, and it definitely, if you go and search for certain words, it's definitely not going to pick up anything in this. But if you go and give this to Microsoft Word, this could typically take a little bit longer, and it needs to work harder for its money on this one, but it actually doesn't do a bad job either. So there you go. It's actually converted all of this for you into text. If I go and search for certain words, so that it's actually picking up these things, and I can go and edit this document straight in here.
It's definitely gotten a lot better than what it was, but yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I was stoked when I saw this. So I know it's got nothing to do with Power Platform, but I'm sure 90% of the people on this call will be able to use it. Any questions?
I don't have a clap feature, but I would be clapping right now. This is amazing.
So sorry, Michael, we're not going to sell any Power Apps licenses with this one, but you know, at least people need to go and buy Word.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, David. That is really cool. I'm sure a lot of people are going to get benefit from that. Okay, so we've reached the end of the agenda. I just want to open up the floor to any general comments, questions from anyone. Justin, do you have something to say there? Something to add? Great comments, Mark. That's so true. Justin, I see you've come off mute, but I'm not hearing you. No.
I still can't hear anything.
Look at And we've just lost Justin. He might be trying to rejoin. Anything from anyone else? Okay, perfect. So then I think with that is going to bring us to the end of the session. So we will be uploading this recording to YouTube so you can go back and check Karike's awesome demo. Karike, once again, thanks for presenting. We really appreciate it. It's always great to see what people are doing out there. So everyone, thanks for your time. Justin, you back? No, I still can't hear Justin. Second, let's see. Okay, so with that, everyone, thanks for your time tonight. I hope you found it worthwhile and you got to learn something. Once again, if there's anything that you want to show in these sessions, or if there's a topic that you think may be of interest, please don't hesitate to let us know. So thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great evening further.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers all. Bye.
Cheers, cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a
Thanks
good
so much,
evening.
everyone. Cheers.